Part 1. For a long time, Earth was just a small blue dot in the vastness of space. To the great powers of the galaxy, it was nothing special. The Galactic Concord, a group of old and powerful alien civilizations, had watched Earth for centuries. They saw humans fight among themselves, waste their planet's resources, and struggle to reach the stars. To them, humanity was young, messy, and weak. They never thought Earth would be a threat. The Concord had rules for every world in known space. If a planet was not advanced enough to join their alliance, it had to follow their orders. Earth had been labeled a Tier 3 world, too primitive to speak at the Council, too unimportant to defend itself. For years, the Concord sent quiet warnings, asking Earth to stop building weapons, to share its mineral data, and to allow alien inspectors on the ground. Earth always tried to talk, to explain, to ask for time. But the Concord grew tired of waiting. One morning, without warning, a massive ship appeared in orbit above Geneva. It was sleek and silver, shaped like a curved blade, and it cast a long shadow over the United Nations building. From it came a message, broadcast in every language on Earth. The voice was calm, cold, and final. People of Earth, you have failed to comply with Concord Directive 7. Your world is now under enforcement protocol. You will surrender all military systems, open your borders, and accept resource extraction terms within 72 hours. Resistance will not be tolerated. Panic spread fast. News channels flashed red alerts. Governments scrambled to respond. But deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a hidden command center known only as Site Theta, a different kind of response was already forming. General Paul Dawson stood in the center of the war room, his arms crossed, eyes locked on the main screen. He was a tall man with short gray hair and a face that had seen too many wars. Beside him, Dr. Lena Ortiz tapped quickly at a console. She was younger, with sharp eyes and a mind that moved faster than most computers. She had spent the last 20 years studying alien tech, ever since a strange ship crashed in the Nevada desert back in 2047. That wreck had changed everything. We knew this day would come, Paul said quietly. Lena didn't look up. They think we're still using chemical rockets and bullet guns. They have no idea what we've built. Across the room, President Neil Carter entered, flanked by 2 security officers. He looked tired but steady. At 58, he had spent most of his life in public service, but nothing had prepared him for this. He walked straight to Paul and Lena. "What are our options?" he asked. Paul turned to him. "We can surrender, or we can show them we're not helpless." Neil shook his head. "Surrender means slavery. They'll strip our planet clean and leave us with nothing. We've seen what they did to the Varel colonies." Lena finally looked up. "We're ready, Mr. President. The wardens are online. The echo grid is stable. And the drones, they're waiting." Neil took a deep breath. He walked to the center of the room and activated the global broadcast system. Every screen on Earth, phones, televisions, public displays, lit up with his face. "People of Earth," he began, his voice calm but firm. "Today, an alien power has demanded we give up our freedom. They believe we are weak. They believe we will bow, but we will not. We do not ask for war, but we will not kneel." The message lasted less than a minute, but in that time something changed. Around the world, people stopped running. They looked up. They listened. And for the first time in a long time, they felt united. Back at Site Theta, alarms began to blare. The Concord ship was powering up its main weapon, a gravity pulse emitter designed to knock out all electronics on the continent. It was meant to be a show of force, a way to scare Earth into silence. "They're going to hit Geneva in 60 seconds, a technician called out. Paul didn't flinch. "Activate Wardens 1 through 9, full shield protocol." Lena's fingers flew across the console. Shield harmonics locked. Feeding power from lunar array. High above Earth, 9 hidden platforms, each no bigger than a school bus, woke from their silent slumber. They had been placed in orbit over the last decade, disguised as space junk or old satellites. Now they hummed to life, emitting a low-frequency field that wrapped around the planet like an invisible net. The Concord ship fired. A wave of distorted gravity shot toward Earth, bending light and warping the air. But the moment it touched the Warden field, something strange happened. Instead of crashing into the atmosphere, the pulse bounced, twisted, and shot back toward the ship. On the bridge of the Zenthari, the alien commander barely had time to shout before his own weapon overloaded his systems. Lights flickered. Panels exploded. The ship shuddered violently and began to fall. "What is this?" the commander yelled. Their tech is primitive. This is impossible. But it wasn't impossible. It was human. Down in Geneva, people watched in awe as the giant silver ship tumbled from the sky, trailing smoke. It didn't crash into the city. Instead, it plunged into Lake Geneva with a massive splash, sending waves crashing against the shore. Silence fell for a moment. Then cheers erupted across the globe. At Site Theta, Paul let out a slow breath. They'll be back. And next time they'll send more. Lena nodded. Then we'll be ready. Neil looked at the screen showing the smoking wreck in the lake. We just told the galaxy we're not easy prey. Paul turned to him. Now we prepare for what comes next. Outside, the sun set over the mountains. Somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, hidden beneath the waves, a fleet of small silent drones powered up. Their pilots, led by Lieutenant Kara Finch, waited for orders. They knew the real fight hadn't started yet. But for the first time, Earth wasn't just defending itself. It was fighting back. And the Galactic Concord, watching from their distant thrones, felt something they hadn't felt in centuries. Fear. Part 2. The Concorde ship lay half-submerged in Lake Geneva, its silver hull cracked and steaming. Smoke curled from its broken engines and strange blue fluid leaked into the water. People gathered on the shores, watching in stunned silence. No one cheered now. They knew this was only the beginning. Back at Site Theta, alarms still blinked red, but the mood had shifted. There was no panic, only focus. General Paul Dawson stood over a large holographic map of Earth, his eyes scanning every continent. Dr. Lena Ortiz worked nearby, her fingers dancing across a screen filled with alien code. President Neil Carter paced slowly, his face tight with worry. They'll send more, Neil said. They can't let this stand, Paul nodded. They'll come with a fleet this time. Not just one ship, Lena looked up. Then we hit them before they get close. In the Pacific Ocean, deep beneath the surface, Lieutenant Kara Finch sat in the cockpit of her drone, a sleek black vessel no bigger than a car. Around her, dozens of others waited in silent rows inside a hidden underwater bay. These weren't ordinary drones. They were built from salvaged alien metal, powered by compact fusion cores and guided by AI that learned from every mission. Earth had no giant warships, no planet-destroying lasers. But it had speed, stealth, and surprise. Kara checked her systems one last time. All units report. Finch 1 ready, came a voice. Finch 2 locked and loaded. Finch 3 standing by. She smiled faintly. Her team was small, just 12 pilots. But they were the best Earth had. Most had trained in secret for years, never telling anyone what they really did. Now the whole world depended on them. High above, the Wardens still hummed in orbit, their energy fields holding steady. But Lena knew they couldn't stop everything. The Concord would adapt. They always did. So Earth had to strike first, not to destroy but to disable. To show they weren't helpless. A new alert flashed on Paul's screen. Incoming signal from lunar orbit, a technician said. It's not ours, Paul's jaw tightened. They're already here. On the edge of Earth's atmosphere, 3 new ships appeared. They were larger than the Zinthari, shaped like dark wedges with glowing red veins along their sides. These were enforcement cruisers meant to crush rebellions, not negotiate. Their commanders had watched the fall of the first ship. They would not make the same mistake. One of them opened a channel. The voice was harsh, angry. Earth forces, you have attacked a Concorde vessel. Surrender immediately or face total annihilation. Neil stepped forward. Tell them we don't take orders from bullies. Paul gave the order. Launch the Finches. Deep in the ocean, hatches opened silently. Water rushed out as the black drones shot upward like arrows, breaking the surface with barely a ripple. Their engines made no sound humans could hear. To the conquered ships, the sky looked empty. Kara guided her drone through the clouds, her eyes locked on the lead cruiser. Target locked. Going in. The conquered ships began charging their weapons. Energy built in their cores, ready to unleash a storm of plasma on Geneva, New York, Tokyo, anywhere they chose. But they never saw the Finches coming. From below, the drones fired not missiles but kinetic rods, long, dense spikes made of tungsten and alien alloy. They moved so fast they punched through the cruiser's shields like paper. One rod hit the main power conduit of the lead ship. Another struck a sensor array on the second. The third pierced the engine housing of the last. Explosions bloomed in space, silent, bright, and deadly. The lead cruiser spun out of control, its lights flickering. The second lost all navigation. The third tried to retreat, but its engine sputtered and died. On the ground, people watched the sky light up with flashes of red and blue. No sound reached them, but they knew what it meant. Earth had struck back again. Inside Site Theta, cheers broke out, but Paul raised a hand. "Stay sharp. This isn't over." Lena studied the data streaming in. "Their shields failed because we used the same frequency they used against us. They never expected us to copy it so fast." Neil looked at her. "Can we do it again?" "If they send the same ships, yes. But they won't." Sure enough, a new message arrived, not from the damaged cruisers, but from deep space. The Galactic Council itself was speaking. "Earth," the voice said, cold and slow. "You have crossed a line. Prepare for judgment." Then the signal cut out. Paul turned to Kara over the comms. "Get your team back." "Good work." "Roger that," Kara replied. Her drone turned and dove back toward the ocean, vanishing beneath the waves. In Geneva, rescue teams moved toward the crashed Zenthari. Scientists in protective suits approached carefully, scanners in hand. They weren't there to fight. They were there to learn. Every piece of that ship was a treasure, wiring, metal, even the alien blood on the floor. Earth needed every advantage it could get. Back at Site Theta, Neil called an emergency meeting with world leaders. For once, they listened. No arguments, no delays. They agreed to pool all remaining military tech, share data, and follow Earth's new defense plan. For the first time in history, humanity acted as one. But the real battle wasn't just in space, it was in information. Lena had an idea. While the Concorde thought Earth was just reacting, she wanted to make them doubt everything they saw. "We'll build ghosts," she told Paul. "Fake signals, phantom ships, false energy readings. Let them think we have a fleet hiding in the asteroid belt or on Mars." Paul liked it. Make them scared to move. So engineers worked through the night programming the Echo Grid, a network of satellites and ground stations that could mimic alien tech signatures. Soon, Concorde scanners began picking up strange readings. A battleship near Jupiter, a weapons platform near Venus, even a massive structure forming near Pluto. None of it was real. But the Concorde didn't know that. On Varel Prime, the Council argued. Some wanted to send a full armada. Others warned it might be a trap. The humans had already surprised them twice. What if this was a third trick? While the aliens debated, Earth prepared. Factories ran nonstop. Scientists tested new shield designs. Pilots trained harder. And deep in the ocean, the Finches waited. Kara sat alone in her quarters after the mission, staring at a photo of her younger brother, a boy who died in a flood caused by climate collapse years ago. She hadn't joined the program for glory. She joined because she wanted a world where kids didn't die from things adults could fix. Now she was fighting for that world on a scale no one had imagined. Outside her window, the moon rose over the water. Somewhere up there, the wardens watched. Silent, ready. Earth wasn't winning yet, but it wasn't losing either. And that, for now, was enough. The Concorde had expected silence. Instead, they got defiance. They had expected fear. Instead, they got cleverness. And as their ships limped back to base, damaged and confused, one truth became clear to every alien in the galaxy. Earth was not what they thought it was, and it was just getting started. Further, the Galactic Council met in a great hall made of living crystal on the planet Varel Prime. Tall spires reached into a violet sky, and the air hummed with ancient energy. Around a circular table sat representatives from dozens of species, some with many eyes, some with no faces at all, some made of light. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. No young race had ever challenged them like this. Ambassador Vrak of the Cathari Dominion slammed a clawed fist on the table. "Earth must be crushed. They humiliated us twice. If we do nothing, every backwater world will think they can defy the Concorde." But others were not so sure. A soft voice came from a floating orb of mist, the delegate from the Sylth Collective. We scanned their system again. They now show signs of a hidden fleet near Mars, another near Saturn's rings. Their energy output has tripled in 1 week. How is this possible for a Tier 3 world? Vrak growled. It is a trick. They are weak. They bluff. Then why did our ships fail? Asked a 4-armed envoy from the Tarn hegemony. Our gravity pulse was perfect, yet it turned against us. Our cruisers were struck by weapons we did not see. This is not bluffing. This is adaptation. Silence fell over the hall. For the first time, doubt crept into the Council's thoughts. Back on Earth, no one knew what was being said on Varel Prime. But they knew the Concorde would not give up. So they kept working. Ben Carter, President Neil's younger brother and one of Earth's top engineers, stood on the roof of a hidden lab in Chile, watching a new satellite launch into the sky. It was small, no bigger than a refrigerator, but it carried the latest Echo Grid software. The more we scatter these, the harder it is for them to tell what's real, Ben said to his team. Down below, workers loaded crates onto a maglev train headed for Site Theta. Inside were parts for new drone wings, shield modulators, and AI cores built from melted-down alien circuits. Earth had no factories in space, no mega shipyards. But it had clever hands and stubborn hearts. At Site Theta, Lena Ortiz studied the latest data from the crashed Zentauri. She had found something strange in its memory core, a log entry about other worlds that had resisted the Concorde long ago. Most were erased from records, but a few names remained: Kalis, Orvan, Mira 7. All had been labeled rebellious and cleansed, but before they fell, they had fought hard, and they had used tactics similar to Earth's: deception, speed, using the enemy's own tech against them. They've seen this before, Lena whispered, but they forgot how to lose. Paul Dawson entered the room. The president wants to know if we can keep this up. We can, Lena said, but only if they keep underestimating us. That night, the Concorde sent another probe, a small, fast scout ship meant to slip past Earth's defenses and take real readings. It entered the solar system near Pluto, silent and dark, but Earth was watching. The Echo Grid picked it up instantly. Fake signals flared to life, phantom ships moving near Neptune, energy spikes on the dark side of Mercury. The probe's AI struggled to make sense of it all. Was that a battleship? Or just noise? It slowed, confused. Then, from the asteroid belt, 3 Finches launched. They moved like shadows, their engines cold to avoid detection. Kara Finch led the group, her eyes sharp on her display. Target is scanning Mars, she said softly. It thinks there's a base there. Good, came the reply from Site Theta. Let it believe. The probe sent a burst of data back to the Concorde. Images of structures that didn't exist. Power readings from empty space. Then, just as it turned to leave, Kara fired a single EMP dart. It hit the probe's antenna, frying its comms. The little ship drifted, blind and lost. Back on Varel Prime, the Council received the corrupted data. The images showed Earth surrounded by warships, weapons glowing, defenses stronger than any Tier 4 world. Some envoys began to whisper. What if they were never Tier 3? One asked. What if they hid their true power? Brack stood again. Impossible. Our scouts watched them for 200 years. They barely left their moon. But what if they faked that too? The misty delegate asked. What if they let us see only what they wanted? Fear spread through the hall like a virus. The Conquered had always believed in order, in control, in knowing exactly how strong every world was. Now Earth had made them uncertain, and uncertainty was dangerous. On Earth, people went about their lives, but with a new quiet pride. Schools taught kids about the wardens, factories ran day and night, farmers shared food with cities, nations that once argued now shared fuel, medicine, and plans. The threat from space had done what no treaty ever could. It had united humanity. Ben Carter visited his brother in the president's office. Neil looked tired but calm. They're scared, Ben said. Not of our weapons. Of not knowing what we can do. Neil nodded. Good. Let them wonder. Meanwhile, deep in the ocean, Kara and her team practiced new attack patterns. They trained to hit faster, quieter, smarter. They knew the next fight would be harder. The Conquered wouldn't send scouts or single cruisers next time. They would come with everything. But Earth had one advantage the aliens could not understand. Humans didn't fight just to win. They fought to protect, to keep their home, their families, their future. That made them dangerous in a way numbers could not measure. Lena finished her report and sent it to Paul. We're ready for whatever comes next. Paul read it and smiled faintly. Then let them come. High above, the wardens glowed softly in the dark. The echo grid whispered lies into the void, and far below the waves the Finches waited, silent, sharp, and ready. The Concord thought they knew Earth. They were wrong. And with every passing hour, that mistake grew bigger. In the crystal halls of Varel Prime, the council argued late into the night. Some called for total war, others warned of traps. No decision was made, and in that delay, Earth gained more time to build, to plan, to hope. The galaxy had always seen humans as children. But children grow up, and sometimes they surprise everyone. Part 4. Earth did not wait for the next attack. While the Galactic Council argued among themselves, President Neil Carter called a secret meeting with Paul, Lena, and Ben. They gathered in a quiet room deep inside Site Theta, lit only by soft blue lights. No cameras, no recordings, just 4 people and a plan that could change everything. "We can't win a straight fight," Neil said. "Even with the Wardens and the Finches, they have more ships, more weapons, more time. But we don't need to beat them with guns. We need to break their unity." Lena leaned forward. "The conquered isn't one people. It's dozens of species forced together under old rules. Many of them don't trust each other. If we show them the truth, that the Council lies, that they take more than they give, some might turn." Paul nodded slowly. "So we don't attack their ships. We attack their control." Ben smiled. "We give the truth to the ones they've been hurting." The plan was simple but dangerous. Earth would not fire a single weapon beyond its own system. Instead, they would send messages, real ones, full of proof, to every world under Concord rule. They would show how the Council demanded surrender, ignored peaceful talks, and destroyed those who said no. They would share footage of the Xanthari's attack, Earth's warnings, and the Concord's threats. And they would include something even more powerful: help. Using the alien tech they had studied, Lena and her team built small data cores, no bigger than a hand. Each one held blueprints for basic shield generators, AI-assisted defense programs, and ways to block Concord surveillance. Nothing that could destroy a planet. Just enough to give others a chance to stand up. Major Derek Shaw was chosen to lead the mission. He was quiet, smart, and knew how to move unseen. He had spent years working with deep space comms and had a gift for slipping through enemy nets. His team would use Earth's fastest ships, tiny, fast vessels built from asteroid metal and powered by quantum tunnel drives. They couldn't carry weapons, but they could carry hope. The first target was Mira 7, a world mentioned in the Xanthari's logs. Once rich in minerals, it had been stripped bare by the Concord and left with broken cities and hungry people. Earth's ship, named Dawn Runner, slipped past Concord patrols using the Echo Grid's fake signals as cover. Near Mira 7, it dropped a single data pod into the planet's upper atmosphere. The pod burned on entry, then split open, scattering hundreds of small receivers across the land. Within hours, people on Mira 7 began picking them up. At first, they were afraid, but when they played the message, they saw Earth's president speaking plainly. They saw the truth, and they saw the blueprints. Rebellion started that night. Next, the Dawn Runner went to Kalis, then Orvan, then 6 other worlds. Each time, the ship stayed hidden. Each time, the message spread fast. The Concord tried to block the signals, but it was too late. The truth was out. On Varel Prime, chaos broke out. Reports flooded the council chambers. Uprisings on Mira 7. Shield towers rising on Kalis. Rebel fleets forming near the Tarn border. Ambassador Vrak roared in anger. "This is Earth's doing. They are poisoning our alliance." But the Sylth delegate floated calmly. "Or perhaps your alliance was already sick. Earth only gave the cure." The Concord's unity, once unshakable, began to crack. Some species recalled their fleets to protect their own worlds. Others refused new orders. A few even sent secret messages to Earth asking for more help. Back on Earth, Derek and his team returned, exhausted but proud. "They're listening," he told Neil. "Not everyone, but enough." Paul watched the star maps in the war room. Red dots, signs of unrest, now covered half the Concord's territory. "They're too busy fighting each other to come after us." Lena added, "And every day they delay, we get stronger." But Earth didn't stop there. Ben and his engineers worked on a new idea: tiny relay drones that could bounce signals between rebel worlds, creating a hidden network outside Concord control. It was risky, but it worked. Soon, rebels on different planets were sharing plans, warnings, even jokes. They were no longer alone. Kara Finch and her Finches stayed ready just in case, but for now their weapons stayed cold. Earth's war had changed. It was no longer about shooting ships. It was about giving others the courage to say no. In Geneva, scientists finished studying the Xanthari. They learned how the Concord tracked ships, how they controlled their drones, even how they chose which worlds to punish. All of it went into new data cores, sent out on the next wave of missions. One night, a young girl on Mira 7 used the blueprints to build a small shield around her village. When a Concord patrol came to punish them, their weapons bounced off. The patrol left, confused. The girl smiled. She had protected her home with knowledge, not violence. That story reached Earth. It was shared in schools and news feeds and quiet talks between friends. It reminded everyone why they fought, not for glory, but for moments like that. The Conquered tried to lie, to say Earth was spreading dangerous tech, that they were causing chaos. But fewer believed them. Even some Conquered soldiers began to question their orders. Why crush a world that only wanted to be left alone? Neil gave another speech, not to Earth, but to the galaxy. It was short. We do not seek to rule you. We only ask that no one rules us. If you want peace, we offer it. If you want freedom, we stand with you. The message traveled on rebel networks, hidden channels, even old Conquered relays that had been hacked. It reached places Earth's ships never could. Paul stood beside Neil after the broadcast. Do you think it's enough? Neil looked at the stars on the screen. It has to be. Because if we make them see us as equals, we might not need to fight at all. High above, the Warden still watched. The echo grid still whispered. And in the dark between stars, small ships carried small hopes to worlds that had forgotten they could dream. The Concord had thought Earth was weak because it asked for peace. They were wrong. Asking for peace while being ready to defend it, that was the strongest thing of all. And now, the galaxy was starting to understand. Part 5, 6 months passed. The stars were quiet. No Conquered ships hovered over Earth. No ultimatums echoed through the skies. Instead, a single vessel approached, small, white, and unarmed. It carried no weapons, only a flag of truce and a message. The Galactic Council wished to talk. Earth did not celebrate. They prepared. Site Theta ran final checks on every system. The Warden stayed active. The Finches remained hidden beneath the waves. But this time, Earth met the visitors not with fear, but with calm. The ship docked at Luna Station, a peaceful outpost orbiting the moon. Inside, President Neil Carter, General Paul Dawson, Dr. Lena Ortiz, and Engineer Ben Carter waited. They wore simple clothes, no uniforms, no medals, just as a sign that they came as equals, not beggars or conquerors. The alien delegation stepped through the airlock. They were not warriors. They were diplomats, some old, some young, all weary. Ambassador Vrak was not among them. In his place stood a quiet Kethari woman named Tala, known for her fairness. Beside her floated the misty form of the Sylth delegate, and behind them envoys from worlds that had once been silent under Conquered rule. They entered the meeting room without guards, without threats. Tala looked at Neil. We come not to demand. We come to listen, Neil nodded. Then sit. We have much to say. For 3 days they talked, not in shouts but in questions. Earth showed them logs of every warning they had sent, every peaceful offer ignored. They played the footage of the Zentharis' attack, the gravity pulse aimed at a city of diplomats. They explained how they built the Wardens not to attack but to protect, how the Finches struck only to disable, never to kill, how the data cores were sent not to start wars, but to give others a choice. The envoys listened. Some looked ashamed, others looked relieved. On the 3rd day, Tala spoke for the new council. The old ways are broken. The Conquered ruled by fear, not trust. Earth did not break us with weapons. You broke us with truth. She laid out their offer. No more demands. No more forced submissions. Earth would join the council, not as a subject, but as a full member. They would have a voice in every decision that affected them. In return, Earth would share some of its knowledge, not weapons, but ways to heal planets, to clean oceans, to grow food in harsh places. Things the galaxy had forgotten in its rush for power. Neil looked at Paul, then Lena, then Ben. They all nodded. We accept, Neil said, but only if every world gets the same chance. No more tears, no more lies. Tala smiled, a rare thing for her kind. That is already happening. Mira 7 now has a seat. Kalis speaks in the chamber. The age of silence is over. The treaty was signed on a simple screen, witnessed by humans and aliens alike. No grand ceremony, no fanfare, just a quiet agreement that changed everything. Afterward, Tala walked with Lena through a viewing bay on Luna Station. Earth hung below them, blue and bright. How? Tala asked softly. Your species was so divided, so young. How did you become strong enough to stand against us? Lena looked at the planet. We learned. We listened. When you gave us no choice, we fought. Not to destroy, but to prove we belong among the stars. Taylor was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You did more than that. You reminded us what the Concorde was supposed to be. Not a ruler, but a protector." Back on Earth, people did not cheer loudly. They gathered in parks, in homes, in quiet streets. They looked up at the sky and felt something new. Pride, yes, but also peace. They had not won a war. They had earned respect. Kara Finch stood on a beach in California watching the sunset. Her brother's photo was in her pocket. She whispered, "We did it." In Chile, Ben watched a new satellite launch. Not for war, but for weather tracking, for farming, for helping neighbors. In Geneva, scientists worked with former Concorde engineers to clean up the Xanthari's wreckage and turn it into something useful. Paul stood alone in the war room one last time. He shut down the main screen. The red lights went dark. For the first time in months, the room was quiet. At Site Theta, life slowed. Not because the work was done, but because the fear was gone. Engineers turned their skills to building better homes, cleaner energy, faster travel. Not just for Earth, but for anyone who asked. The galaxy was changing. Not because one side won, but because both sides chose to see each other clearly. Years later, children on Earth would learn about this time in school. Not as a battle, but as a turning point. The moment humanity stopped being a footnote in someone else's story and became part of the story itself. And on Varel Prime, in the Great Crystal Hall, a new seat stood empty no more. It bore a simple symbol, a blue circle with a white swirl, the ancient sign of Earth. Next to it, other new seats appeared for Mira 7, for Kalis, for worlds that once had no voice. The Concorde was no longer a council of rulers. It was becoming a council of equals. Outside Luna Station, a small ship prepared to leave. It carried Earth's first official ambassador to the stars. Not a soldier, not a spy, a teacher named Rosa Mendez, who would share how humans grew food in deserts, healed sick rivers, and taught children to dream. As her ship drifted into the dark, Earth glowed behind her, no longer overlooked, no longer afraid. Just a planet among planets finally seen. And in that quiet light, the galaxy found something it had almost forgotten. Hope.